Elul is a month-long holiday, or Hol month, that marks the end of one Jewish year and helps to transition into the beginning of a new one. Traditionally, it is a month of introspection, contemplation, and personal growth. Untraditionally, or at least less traditionally, Elul Unbound is a digital initiative offering up a wide variety of avenues for experimenting over the course of this month. This year, Elul Unbound is a chance to on-ramp or enter into the Shemitah year, the one-year observance that comes every 7 years, where we allow land to rest and reset society writ large. Sign up to join Elul Unbound's email list and learn more about all of Elul Unbound's offerings and Shemitah by heading to judaismunbound.com/ELUL. This is a special bonus edition of Judaism Unbound, Elul, gearing up for the Holi-Year. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Lex Rofberg.
And I'm Wendie Bernstein-Lash.
And by popular demand, by many an excited email that we've received over the course of this year, Elul Unbound, our annual celebration of the 12th month of the Jewish calendar year, is back.
Yay! Woo!
Wendie, many of you know her from past Elul Unbounds and from past bonus episodes of Judaism Unbound that are part of Elul Unbound. I am really thrilled to have Wendie join us once again as a guest co-host of a couple bonus episodes of our podcast, where we are going to dive into what this month is. But this time around, more than what this month of Elul is, we're actually going to be thinking about and talking about and mapping out what Shemitah is, what the sabbatical year is, because Elul, this final month of the calendar year, is this time around leading us into a special moment in the flow of Jewish time, which is the sabbatical year, which comes every 7 years. This coming new year marks a sabbatical year where there's certain things outlined in the Bible that we don't do, that we do. And there's also new ideas we have for what Shemitah can be in our time. And we'll be talking about all that. But so this time around, we're focusing not only on sort of the introspection and growth that comes with the month of Elul, that's part of the month's sort of sacred valence, but also the uniqueness of this time that comes around only once every 7 years. So we're excited for that. And to kick things off, I'd love to just pass to you, Wendie. What is the sabbatical year? What is Shemitah? And what is Shemitah Unbound, or however we're starting to approach it this year?
Shmelul. Yeah. So I just have to say that I was like Shemitah unaware for most of my Jewish life. And even the last time it came around 7 years ago. So to really be able to focus on it feels like it's really exciting for me. So Elul's always been, for those of you who haven't been with us on past Eluls, maybe I should back up and say that Elul is the last month of the year, as you said, Lex, this on-ramp to get to the high holy days with preparation, with intention, so that when we show up, we get the most out of that time. And for many of us, this past year, being in the pandemic and sheltering in place, we've done a lot of reflection. So it's like, what? More reflection? It's yeah. There's always time for more because life continues to evolve. And so, but we have this in the Jewish calendar, this special time to prepare us. And we have this special time that comes once every 7 years of Shemitah and the sabbatical year and the bringing together of those as we are still in a pandemic. Still, this is not the same place we left a year and a half ago. It seems like a great time to be exploring what Elul and preparation for the high holidays and what preparation for a whole sabbatical year might look like that would bring some real meaning to people to take on something that they have never done before.
Yeah, I agree with you. So I'm glad you brought up the pandemic, because I think that this 7-year moment, this sabbatical year, this Shemitah, it's coming in certain senses at an appropriate time. But I also like that you said it's kind of like we've all done a lot of introspection. We were kind of forced to. And so you could argue like, ooh, not great timing, Shemitah, this year of thought, of of backing out, of zooming out, because we've been asking big questions about where the world's going. Or you could say it's a great time. It's a great synchronicity or whatever, because we've been, I guess, prepping without realizing it through these pandemic kinds of conversations. Where's the world going? To give us the chance to really hone in, Jewishly and otherwise, on where we want the world to go. So I do want to just sort of, on a practical level, say what the sabbatical year is in like the Bible, so that we can then talk about what it is for us. So in the Bible, specifically in Leviticus chapter 25, it's Parsha, it's Torah portion Bahar, which is the shortest Torah portion of any of them. It's got a clear thesis statement. It's one chapter. It's like very bite-sized. And it talks about the sabbatical year, and it talks about the Jubilee year, sort of two related notions. The sabbatical year comes around every 7 years, as we've talked about, and it's a chance for the land to be given a Sabbath. Human beings have Sabbath once a week. Animals also get that Sabbath. It says in a number of spots that like you have to allow your animals to rest for Shabbat. The land, it doesn't make any sense to say like, oh, hey, plants, you get to rest on Saturday and then you're back on the clock. Like that doesn't really work. So the way that has been done for the world, for the planet, is that instead of on a once a week basis, you get 1 day off, it's on a once every 7 years basis, you get 1 year off. So that's what the Bible does in order to apply the lens of rest of Shabbat to all life, not just humans and animals, but also the planet as a whole. So that's kind of cool in my view. I want to start with that. I think it's very wise that we not only give moving, living things like animals and humans the chance to rest, but also, non-moving things that are anchored to the ground, plants and the planet itself, the chance to rest. So that's cool. Also layered onto that is the idea of sort of a reset in certain senses. So debts between people are forgiven at the end of this 7-year cycle. That becomes complicated in some later post-biblical texts, but in the Bible, the idea is that debts that you have between one person and another get forgiven. It might be that certain people have become impoverished in that time. It might be that certain other people have grown wealthy. Like the idea is to try and kind of equalize, which is very much sort of in line with a lot of progressive notions of how we might want to construct a world. So, and then there's the Jubilee year, which the Jubilee year is sort of separate from the sabbatical year, but it's also intertwined with it. The Jubilee year is every 7 times you go around the 7-year cycle. So every 49 years, some say it's the 49th year, some say it's the 50th. It's kind of a confusing thing. You have a big extra Shemitah, which is called Yovel, Jubilee. The etymology of the word jubilant, of all of those words in English that are all joy-filled. And that takes these earlier ideas, the land resting, etc., and it adds a layer of just celebration and also property reverting to its original owners. So there's really a sense of taking stock of where society is and resetting. So that's a little bit of an overview. Wendie, what should we do? What should we do?
I actually want to go back to something that you said, because I love the idea of resetting, and then I'll see if I remember to answer that question. Reset. What are reset buttons? What do they do to us? And because Elul is a time of transformation and preparation, I also want to make sure that we get a chance to think about and reflect about that. So, if I set a reset button on my computer or whatever, it brings me back to wherever I was before I set the reset button. Probably I should use my iPhone as an example, because I have done that a few times. But I think it's different for human beings. Like, what does it do to reset? And I just want to surface the fact that I think it's a humility practice. We get really tied to our things and our accomplishments and how much money we have in our bank account, and we've gotten this raise. And what reset does is it reminds us it's not all from our making. And can I be humble enough to realize, I've had some things that have been gifted to me. I think maybe I'm thinking about this more because so much of we've been talking about white privilege. And it's like, I have privilege. I have things that I have accomplished, but they came not always because of my skill set. and my abilities. And so I love thinking about Shemitah also as a humility practice. The great equalizer reminding me, like, can I start from scratch again? And can I trust in myself and trust in others that I can rebuild? What can we do? I mean, it's actually like, this is a perfect Judaism Unbound opportunity because Shemitah hasn't been practiced so much. We can reclaim it. We can claim it in a variety of new ways that are not breaking with any tradition. We can decide to set some intentionality around the year. We can decide to let go of something with intention. We can decide to have a fast. We can decide to take on something. We can decide to let go of something. I mean, most of us aren't farmers anymore. So what does it mean to let the land go fallow, or to not actively do agriculture, but to see what the land's going to give you if you just let it be land and live off of that? I'd love to do that, but I'm not a farmer. So what do I need to do? And I would say maybe that's the Elul process for people, is they get to kind of play around with what are some things that you would either want to take up that would embody this sense of reset button, humility, honoring that the land too needs its Sabbath rest, and or what might you want to let go of in that process?
I really love that. And I think that you're honing in both through Elul and through the year-long practice of sabbatical, of release. That's another way people translate Shemitah sometimes, is like release. I think that's really powerful. And I don't think I'm disagreeing with you, but I would add a few layers, because you mentioned, like, you're not a farmer. So the ways of relating to land in particular are different when you're not a farmer who has spent the last 6 years like harvesting crops. I would push us to ask some questions through the lens of the collective, through the lens of the we. We've talked about that in past years too. We Lul, we've played around with. Because I think when we go through the lens of the we, there really are issues that come up with part of where Elul is situated in the year is it comes not too far after the saddest day in the calendar, after the 9th of Av. And so there's sort of in the back of my mind, even now, this little twinge of the 9th of Av. And my 9th of Av experience this year, I went to a couple different events. One was online, one was on the ground offline. And at the offline event, we ended up having a really emotional conversation about what's happening to our planet and how that ties to the spirit of just catastrophe and tragedy of the 9th of Av. Even, I live in New England. I live in Rhode Island. I don't live in an area of the country that's, facing fires in the way that where you live, Wendie, is facing fires. I don't live in a place where the most demonstrable signs of climate change have come to bear. But even here, we were talking about how, like, there's a difference to what the weather is in the summer. There's it doesn't quite feel like what it's supposed to. But I think that Shemitah is a tool in the Jewish toolbox, maybe the biggest tool. Maybe it's, I don't know, the hammer, the screwdriver. What tool is like most well known as a tool? It's one of those in the Jewish toolbox for how we might understand our role in conjunction with the planet. And like the takeaway, I don't think that the way to solve climate change is all of us, like, as individuals using a small amount less carbon or something. Like, that's not a bad thing to do. But there are political questions, there are systemic questions about how we have constructed a society and its relationship to the planet that we've always needed to address. But if we don't address them, even in the year, in the cycle that is specifically about giving the land a chance to be healthy, then what are we doing?
One of the things I love about our partnership that comes together once a year is, like, my work is on the individuals going inside, and your work is about the larger landscape. And they're just different lenses that we look at and can use to try to understand and respond. So absolutely, I hope that Shemitah is a wake-up call for those who can move a conversation my orientation is more, well, how do I show up to that? How, yes, me reducing my carbon footprint isn't going to save the planet or not save the planet, but it is a marker for, I recognize we're in a bad place and I want to stand for what is important. And maybe that will then have some kind of ripple effect.
100%. So now the question in terms of like Elul Unbound, Shemitah Unbound is like, what do we do? Which you started, like you definitely gave some great initial answers. And the first answer I would give to what do we do is not sure. That's why we're releasing this episode at the beginning of the month. But my instinct is here's what I feel strongly about. This Elul is not like all other Eluls. We released an episode in past years that was why is this month different from all other months? Or it was something like that, which is a shout out to Passover. Why is this night different from all other nights, etc. In addition to Elul being different from all other months of the year, this Elul, this once every 7 Eluls, is different from the other 6. And there's that website, isitAJewishHoliday.com, that exists. And you go there on a random day and it tells you if it's a Jewish holiday. Every single day, beginning on Rosh Hashanah coming up through the next Rosh Hashanah, is a Jewish holiday. And I don't think that's me being creative. Like, I actually think that's true. Every day, a random Wednesday at 4:55 p.m. in some random place during a Shemitah year is a sacred Jewish occasion. As is 4:56, as is 4:57, as is the Thursday, as is the Friday, as is every day. Given that that's the case, I think any synagogue, any JCC, whatever, like if a day passed by, if a holiday passed by, and they were like, oh, we're not really going to do anything. No Yom Kippur this year. Nah. No Passover this year. Like, no, everybody would be like, what do you mean? You're skipping Passover? You're skipping Yom Kippur? Like, we need to feel that level of urgency around each sort of quote unquote normal day in the sabbatical year. Like and look, I get that doesn't work. Like, you can't spend 365 and a quarter consecutive days like fully alert and conscious of the planet's changes and like committing yourself to it. And like, that's overwhelming. And that's not what I mean. I do mean that we should be seeking out and creating reminders for ourselves. And I think that where Elul comes in, where this last non-sabbatical month comes in, is the chance for us to be like, oh, what am I going to set up for myself? That's an I thing, where you and I are aligned on the I piece. What am I going to set up for myself? Where I think I'm going to put some calendar reminders in my calendar of like stuff I want to be, whether it's meditating on, whether it's acting in response to politically. I'm going to put some of those in my calendar for the next year. I'm going to maybe like once a month. This is a sacred day every day for a year. So let's make the most of it. And in order to do that, we have to prep. And that's where our final on-ramp really comes in. So I'm curious, Wendie, do you have any sort of practical steps you're looking to take?
You brought up the concept of time. And I think Shemitah is another opportunity to look at time and how we fill it up and how we open it up again. Do we need to push a reset button on our time? What's important to us? That's one of those nuances that we think about Shabbat as rest, or we think about Shemitah as rest for the land. But what would it mean to look at it from a time perspective of how we use our time? What's important? Where are we putting our energies? And I haven't decided yet what I'm going to do for the Shemitah year, but this is part of my process, is doing this with you. And I'm thinking, oh, what I know about myself is I need all sorts of reminders. And I love that idea of every day being a holiday, every day being a holiday. Thank you, Reb Lex. And there are times where I want to do something and I set a reminder in my phone. Every day it reminds me, meditate, or every day it reminds me to think about something, to be grateful. I need that kind of level. I need the level of the week. I need the level of the month, and what's really nice is Judaism's already set up with those calendars. So just orienting and plugging myself into a monthly, weekly, daily cycle. And I will also say, as somebody, I have discovered I get bored easily. So I have to kind of keep changing it up. So if I want the whole year to not have a huge peak and then a drop off, changing it up is a way to, maybe I'll do this month, and then the next month I'll do something else, and the next month I'll do something else. I've been thinking about, for myself, what we know about plastic being in the environment and how it's out there. It's in everything. It's in all of us. And I was thinking, could I, for a year, not buy anything that had plastic in it? The thought of that makes me shudder, because I think it's in everything. So maybe I do that as a 1 week practice, and I will know that I'll be much more attentive to what I'm buying and whether it has a plastic wrap around it. To me, that's what Elul and Shemitah, like the undergirding foundation is. Wake up to what we're doing. And as you said, be prepared. So the more I wake up to how much is plastic in things that I buy, from produce to hangers to whatever, I'm then more aware, and I can go into the next months of Shemitah. I can layer on something else. I've put that intentionality to be around plastic, and now I can add to that.
Yeah. So so we're nearing the close of this bonus episode. We're going to have another one. Spoiler alert. Stick around. In a few weeks, there's going to be another wonderful Elul / Shemitah / Shmelul conversation with me and Wendie. But what I say is I really appreciate the idea you just brought up, the week of not using plastic. And I appreciate the framing you gave it, because that's what Judaism does in 100 ways. I mean, like, there's all these nitty gritty rituals in our life. It's so funny because I think about, like, if we were to propose certain rituals today that didn't, and like they would not have had thousands of years of history, to like activist spaces and be like, we should have rules and regulations about how we tie our shoes. This is a real thing in Jewish texts. I think most people be like, are you serious? Like, why? Like, that's not, like, you're going to spend time worrying about that. Like, we're going to, like, once a year construct a fake house and live in it. And it's going to give us an ability to empathize with those who are unhoused. It's going to give us a chance to empathize with those who are wandering in a wilderness. Why? Like, you're doing an individual practice of building a house when you could, like, be part of organizing work to confront homelessness? Like, why? Now that we have Sukkot, which is a holiday that does exactly what I just described, like, I don't think many people would be like, nah, don't do that. So my call is like, yeah, let's find rituals like not using plastic for a week. That's the kind of thing that we can experiment with this month, or this year. I'm really grateful that we can try to do that. We're going to see where this month goes. We're going to be having all sorts of emails that go out, not as many as past years. We really have decided for a methodology this year of less is more. And so we're doing a couple weekly emails as opposed to emails every single day. We are going to include links to past year's content so that you can follow along day by day if you'd like to. But stay tuned for your inbox to get wonderful ideas about how you might spend Elul, how you might spend Shemitah, how Elul can launch you into Shemitah. And we hope that you will give your own ideas and your own thoughts, because we're going to be bringing back our gatherings, our weekly gatherings every week on Friday. We would love for you to come to our Zoom gatherings, which are now like really uninteresting. When we first did Zoom gatherings, it was like, wow, you're going to just randomly have a bunch of people in a Zoom room and like talk about Jewish stuff 4 times in a row throughout month. Like, now that's what everybody does. So great. But come to our Zoom gatherings, because that's where you can bring your own ideas about what Elul can be and what Shemitah can be and how the two link. So thank you so much for listening. Stay tuned for more. And with that, this has been Judaism Unbound.